This the real nonsense, you better call in. Tune in, you might even hear your best friend. You know we live every Saturday, better tap in. Got some real knowledge.
Okay, this is the Real Nonsense Podcast with Chris and Mel. The Real Nonsense Podcast is sponsored by Melodic Retirement Services, LLC. Prepare for your future today. For more information or to make an appointment for a consultation, call Melody J. Walker at 248-301-2439. Mel, what's good?
Hey.
Hey. So today we have a special guest, and our guest is, and I want to read some of this, right? I got to read this for the audience so they know who we're talking to today. Right. So on her Facebook page, it says, Mommy, Believer, Confident, Floral Designer, Therapist, SSW, AKA Skiwi in the House, and Girl Boss. Cass Tech grad, Eastern Michigan grad, and owner, creative director, floral designer, and stylist of M. Dawn Floral Design. Welcome, Monica, to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
That was a hell of an introduction, right? So look, I'm a little biased, Monica, because I've seen your work up close, and it is wonderful. It is wonderful.
Well, thank you.
Mel hasn't, but I have, and Melody, she does great work. I got a couple. What was that called, Monica?
The Hat Box.
Hat Box
Floral Design. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I had never heard of that before.
Okay. Oh, so it's flowers inside of a hat box?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
Never heard of that.
Yep.
I always went to the store and just bought roses and brought them home.
I love flowers. I mean, I always have.
Yeah.
Oh, you have to come by the studio sometime.
Yeah, I would love to. For sure.
Yes.
So Monica, take us on your journey. How did you get to floral design? I mean,
wow.
How did that come about?
So I have always been a bit of a creative, even as a kid. So I started off as a nail tech. So I was doing nails and manicuring. As young as 12 years old, I had customers. And I did actually go to school to get my licensure for nail tech and manicuring. And so I did that for several years, all throughout high school and college. And I kind of happened upon floral design. My sister was getting married, and we had a lady who had done florals for all of our family, for everybody's wedding. And I think she had either passed on or she had retired. And so my sister said, I think you can do my flowers. And I'm, what? I have never touched flowers. What do you mean? Outside of, my dad used to bring my mom flowers pretty much every week. So I did love flowers.
First time for somebody's funeral, the first time?
No, a wedding.
Oh, wedding. First time for a wedding.
Yep.
Wow.
So my sister's wedding. So I kind of just jumped right in. They were silk flowers. We went to a store, we picked them up, and the rest is history. And then from there, a few years later, I was introduced to fresh flowers. I was completely afraid of fresh flowers. I understood that they needed water and you put them in a vase, but I didn't know anything else beyond that. So I kind of jumped right in. I left doing nails for a while because of my allergies and stuff. So I was like, and of course, picked up something else that could cause allergies. But I picked up floral design and just never put it down. And it became almost like therapeutic for me. So it was my escape from my everyday career as a social worker and therapist. So yeah, that's how it started.
Great. So your business is totally virtual. I mean, it's totally the marketplace is online, right?
Yes.
So it's not a physical storefront. Okay.
I actually do have a studio. So it's not an actual storefront, but it's a studio, and it's where I work and design, keep most of my materials and supplies and things, because primarily I do weddings and event work and corporate work. So that's why we don't have a storefront, because it's not really required. But I do have the studio. And so I have clients come there and meet with me for consultations for their events. But it's a nice little space. It's a warehouse, but it is, it's set up for specifically for floral design as opposed to storefront.
Cool. So you said silk flowers. So,
So I started off with silk flowers.
okay.
That was back in 2001. So it's been a long time.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I started off in 2001 with the silks and then moved on in 2004 to fresh flowers. So I've been working with fresh flowers ever since. Yeah.
Yeah, because I like I mean, when you see those big, like, nice weddings with all of it, like the
Hmm.
white flowers, and we dream and we're like, oh, I want flowers everywhere for my wedding. I mean, but that can be like very, very, very expensive.
Oh,
I
yes.
haven't priced it, but I already know like it can be very,
Oh,
very
yes.
expensive. So what are some
Hmm.
of the ways like people can get around like getting the fresh flower look and maybe cutting the cost back a little bit? Like, do they do half fresh flowers, half silk flowers? Like,
Yeah.
how does that go? Because
So, so there are designers that work with silk. I don't work with silk very much,
okay,
unless I am doing like a large installation, so like a large arch, or something that is like hanging from the ceiling, or just really, really huge arrangements. Sometimes I will use silks as the background or as the underlay for the fresh flowers, and that does help to cut costs. However, silk flowers are very pricey. As the years have gone on, they have developed new materials and things that look more realistic. And so they are oftentimes even more expensive per stem than a fresh flower would be. So yeah, it's kind of one of those things of, do you really save money by going with
right.
silks?
Right.
For larger installations, yes, because of course, we're going to design with them and keep them and use them for the next large installation. So yes, for something like that. But for most of the florals that we design, they're all fresh flowers. So it's tough to cut cost.
Yeah, I know. You just gotta pay it if you want fresh
Yeah,
flowers.
yeah. So I typically
Period.
advise, I know a lot of couples now are for weddings, they're getting married and having their ceremony and reception in the same space.
Okay.
So that allows for us to
I
use
did.
florals in ceremony and then move them to reception. So
Okay.
that's one way to save money.
Mhm.
And what else? Just kind of that's really the way to save money, is to repurpose. If you can figure out a way to repurpose the designs from your ceremony to your reception, that's the best way to save money if you really, really want fresh flowers.
Yeah.
The last time I went to a wedding that was
Hmm.
not in the reception and the wedding weren't was in the same place. That was like early 2000. I can't
Yeah.
remember like my wedding was in the same place. I can't I don't think of why anybody would have it in two different places, really.
Yeah, it is kind of rare now.
Yeah,
Some families are very traditional where they are having ceremony in a church
right.
and then the reception elsewhere. But I would say probably a good 80% of my clients are having everything in one space,
Okay.
or one location.
At what point are they? I guess in terms of a wedding,
Hmm.
do they incorporate the floral design portion? Is that right at the beginning, or is that like?
It depends. It honestly depends on the person, on the couple.
Yeah.
And I say that because some people are really, really super into flowers. They love flowers. And so sometimes it is one of the first things that they take care of,
Hmm.
of course, after securing their venue. But oftentimes, most are waiting until, I would say, maybe that 6 to 10 month mark
Hmm.
out from the actual wedding date. And of course, since COVID, many are waiting even later than that. So it's not unusual for me to get a call 2 or 3 months out from an event or wedding now. And it's okay. I mean, it works because that's kind of how things are just going. It's the way things are flowing. But typically, that 6 to 10 month mark is pretty typical.
Yeah, because I would assume you would have to like have time to prepare,
Hmm.
to like order them and things like that. Another thing
Hmm.
I was thinking about, I'm like, okay, we're talking about somebody today with flowers, and it's Easter, and then you got
Hmm.
tulips and all like these Easter colors and stuff. And and I just started getting my green thumb like about I want to say within like the last 4 or 5 years. It came a little later
Mm-hmm.
for me just being a homeowner. So I like planted some flowers and things like that. So we talk about perennials, things that come back.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're buying flowers and plants, you want to invest in the ones that come back every
Oh
year,
yes. Oh
right?
yes. Oh
But
yeah.
the tulips are so beautiful.
That is my favorite flower. That is actually my favorite flower.
And
Hmm.
those do not come back,
Well,
right?
they do. They
They
do.
do.
They
Okay.
do because they are a bulb flower. So as long as those bulbs remain in the ground and unaltered, they will come back.
They will come back.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
let me ask you this. So in this entrepreneurial world we're living in, where everybody's doing hair and they're doing nails and they're doing
Yeah.
tattoos and they're baking cakes and they're making cheesecake jars and it goes on and on and on,
Everything.
right? Everything, right?
Everything.
What's
Yes.
the competition like with florists? I mean, is it steep? Is it
Well,
cutthroat?
so there in Michigan, I would say we do have a lot of florists, at least in our area. We do have a lot of florists, a lot of floral designers. But I feel like we all are different. We all bring something different to the table.
Yeah,
So of course, most designers who have storefronts or retail storefronts, their interest is not usually in events.
Mm,
Not typically. Some do events, but for the most part, they're more so into the retail side of selling everyday flowers. And then it's kind of the same way for me as an event designer. My focus is on events as
yeah,
opposed to the retail side of things.
yeah.
I do enjoy every now and then doing some retail stuff, but for the most part, I kind of stick to that. And then again, every designer kind of has their own style and their own niche, and things that they stick to that make them unique. So yeah, there's competition, but
everybody
you
has a
know,
Yeah.
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So,
everybody's different, and of course in this business, because there's so much face to face and time spent with myself and my clients, it's kind of one of those things of who do you vibe with? You could meet with 3 or 4 florists and we can all design similar work and all have similar pricing, but
Mm,
it's really a matter of who do you vibe with when you meet.
yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like that is an area where I shine, so it's very rare that I'll have somebody who comes in and we don't book. Very rare. Because 9 times out of 10, they, within this time of social media, they've watched me do lives and,
yeah, I've checked
read
out a few of
my
those.
bio and checked
Good.
out my reviews and things like that. So by the time they come to me, they're pretty much sold. It's
Yeah.
just like, I just want to meet Monica. I want to meet M. Dawn and see if this is really the way that we want to go. And usually they come in and they're like, you're the person, you're it. So it tends to kind of work that way for me. But yeah, so I guess I don't see other people really as competition because I kind of have created my own niche, and I feel like I have my own clients, my ideal clients that come directly to me. So
So speaking of
Absolutely.
competition, we're
yeah.
approaching what I call the third largest holiday uh, in a year, right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
So Mother's Day is a holiday.
It
Yes,
is.
It
it
really
is.
is. Everything
Absolutely.
everything shuts
Fuck
down.
CMAs, Chris.
Father's Day is a distant cousin.
No, wait,
Fa-
wait, wait. This is what they
Yes,
say for the people that only go to church. They call them
to
CMAs.
see them.
Christmas, Easter, and what's the next
Mother's
month?
Day.
Mother's Day.
Mother's Day.
Yes,
Wow.
the
That's
Wow.
it.
CMEs.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mother's Day is off the chain. Mother's Day is off the chain.
It
It's been
is. It
so
is.
so
And
so I, so I anticipate you're going to be very very busy in the next
so
coming weeks, right?
this year, so for the last few years, because of COVID, I was, of course, doing a lot more retail work because event we're kind of on the shelf for a little while. So I was really doing a lot of pop-ups and things like that, specifically on holidays and sometimes just kind of out of the blue, doing florals. So for Mother's Day, the last couple of years, I have kept it as a pre-order sales, which is probably what I'll do this year as well. That way I don't get like too many calls. So I keep things kind of very specific and some really tight parameters on what we're doing and what we're offering. We take those pre-orders usually a week or so before, and then there's a cutoff date, and then that's it. So that way I don't run into any of my event dates and things like that.
Right.
This year I do actually have some events that are pretty close to Mother's Day, so I won't be taking as many orders as I have in the past. I'm probably gonna cut it off a little faster than I have in the past, or take fewer orders than I have in the past.
So does it die down? Like, so I guess spring and summer
Mhm.
probably very, very busy, right? And then when
Yes.
it gets to like the fall, you got harvest time,
Hmm.
Halloween, and then Thanksgiving. So does
Hmm.
does the does the does the flower business kind of die down in the wintertime?
You know what? So it used to.
Okay.
Again, pre-COVID, by I would say by November, maybe second week of November, I was like kind of done with events.
Mm,
So November, December, January, and pretty much February too, with the exception of Valentine's Day, I would be like done with events.
okay.
But since COVID, it has really changed our entire industry.
Wow.
Flowers have been one of those things that just seem to uplift people, and
Yeah.
so people are buying flowers left and right. So it's definitely different. I actually had a wedding this past week on a Thursday. I had a Thursday wedding. So that's just to kind of show you how the industry is changing.
Right.
So no longer that Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We're getting these Thursday weddings, midweek weddings. And the venue was so excited to see flowers again. They
Oh,
were like, here we go, spring, let's
yeah.
go. So yeah, it's one of those things where it used to slow down, but now it doesn't. Since COVID, it's like people are having events like left and right.
And I like what you
It
said,
doesn't slow down.
about people. Flowers do something to people, and I think they
Hmm.
do because it's like you can go somewhere, you can be somewhere, and it could be ugly, but if it has flowers in it, it's
Hmm.
like it changes things.
It does.
And I heard you say that you work as a therapist, so
Yes.
I wonder what psychologically happens to us when we see or we smell flowers. Because there's so I was watching like a nature show on
Hmm.
Netflix talking about how animals, how they pollinate the flowers and they
Yes.
pollinate this and
Hmm.
they do that. And it's like it's so connected to like just
Yes.
biology and science and like
Hmm.
God, and it's so deep.
Yes.
So what is it though? Can
Absolutely.
you? I know I'm asking like a loaded question, but
Yeah. So it's a combination, I think, of all of that. When I think of flowers and the way that they affect people, I think about how it just kind of affects all of your senses.
hmm
So you have smell, you have lots of people like to touch. Of course, you can see them, the colors, the way that they open, and all of
yeah,
that stuff. So all of those things kind of add to how people perceive flowers and how people accept flowers. I can share for me one of the most like wonderful things that I experience is Mother's Day and Valentine's Day, those days when I'm delivering. And I like to deliver some of the stuff myself. So just seeing the faces, of
yeah.
people when they get them, it's just like they're like so excited, even if they know they're coming. It's
This
like
is
it's
like
just that thing of like, oh
yeah,
my God, I love these flowers. I can smell them. They're amazing, and I even hear that even from my event clients. They walk into the room, into the space, and they're like, oh my God, like this looks so different, from just before you had the flowers in here. And they can smell them and see them and touch them and all of that. So yeah, it really does do something for your senses. It
hmm
does bring you back to nature.
mm,
A lot of us don't realize how important it is to have nature in our lives and
hmm
to experience nature. Sometimes just walking out of your front door and into just open fresh air, it just does something for you.
yeah,
So, Mom,
It just invigorates you.
what's
hmm
what's the largest event that you've had to deal with? The largest event.
Large, like in guest count?
Yeah. Well,
Or
like, or arrangement count.
okay, so usually for me, I would say my corporate events are my largest events. So I don't know if I can name some of the events that I do, but I've done things for GM, and a couple of other local companies here.
Sure.
So usually those events can have anywhere from 500 to 800 people. So
Mm.
that's, you figure 10 to a table. So anywhere from 50 to 80 arrangements or more if they have arrangements in other areas of the room. So those would be my largest events. As far as weddings, I would say um, probably about the same. And I'm starting to see larger weddings this year. So as we kind of climb out of COVID, I'm seeing more like 30 to 40 table weddings, so 400 guest
Mm.
weddings. So those are coming back. And it kind of it's kind of overwhelming at times to think about it after for 3 years almost of
Right.
doing these smaller events and dinner parties and things, and now boom, hey, we've got 30 tables, we got 40 tables. So it is an adjustment for me this year. But yeah, that would be probably the largest. If we're talking like budget wise,
Mm.
um, largest wedding was about 16,000 in floral,
Ooh.
only. So we're not talking about linens and chairs and drapery and all that stuff. Floral designs only. So
Wow.
yeah, it's about
Wow.
16,000. So
That's
that
pretty huge.
it is,
Yeah.
it is, it is.
Hey, hey,
Yeah.
so we're gonna have a little fun on the real nonsense. We're gonna have some speed questions, right? Then I'm
Oh
gonna hit you with a couple.
gosh.
Yeah, I'm gonna hit you with a couple questions, and these are quick reply questions. So
Okay.
quick reply,
Okay.
right? So you ready?
Yes.
Okay. So worst flower, poppy, dandelion.
Ooh, probably dandelion.
Yeah.
Poppies are kind of popular, so I would say dandelion is, yeah. For weddings, not.
Hardest event to cater to: wedding, funeral.
Probably wedding. I don't, well, no, I can't say that. It's kind of both because funerals are one of those things that I get worked up because I want to make sure that it's right for the family, that that they look at it and it represents their loved one and what they were hoping for. And it's kind of the same thing for weddings. I
Mm.
want to make sure that they're getting what they hope for. So both can be like very stressful, and yeah, that's
So
a hard
one of them is
question.
not easier than the
Yeah.
other.
Yeah.
Not safe to say.
No,
Because when you think
no.
about funerals, not to cut off your quick questions,
Hmm.
Chris,
You just
but when you
did.
think, when you think about funerals, you just see those typical funeral flowers, the
Yeah.
round ones right by the casket. Then they might have a
Hmm.
few of those like lily plants by the casket, and
Hmm.
that's it.
And that's it. And see, for me, most of my funeral clients are referrals. Well, all of them are. They're
Okay.
all referrals or past clients that I've had for events or weddings. And so their expectations are very different than that. Their expectation is that I'm going to bring M. Don florals to the funeral. And I do. So it's yeah. It's very
So I
different.
hear what you're saying. So what you're saying
Yeah.
is with you have a signature floor design that
Yeah.
wherever you go, it that's what you're bringing to
Hmm.
the event. So it might not
Absolutely.
just be a typical like floor arrangement that you're used to seeing at a funeral.
Right.
You do a little something different, maybe. That's
Hmm.
what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, yeah. A great friend of mine who started off as a funeral designer. He always tells me, funerals are events.
Mm.
Funerals are events, and I say, what? But the more I do them, the more I understand that because again, yeah, these families they have an expectation of what these flowers are going to look like, and they are celebrating the life of their loved one. So
Yeah.
I have, when I'm talking about it, I don't usually say funeral flowers. I say, oh, you want celebration of life flowers? Okay,
I
sure, we
like
can do
that.
that. So yeah, I bring my same flavor and everything to the funeral work as well. Hmm.
So, oh, I forgot my questions.
Oh,
And I got
Because
another question too.
Melanie, no, no, I'm gonna finish my round. Melanie always does that. She always interrupts my rapid round. Like
No, no,
it's
no.
oh no,
amazing.
Not
It's
your rapid
amazing.
round, Chris.
Yeah, it's amazing.
the
It's
rapid
amazing.
round.
It's amazing. So okay, so here's the last two. Uh,
Okay.
best flower and worst flower for an arranger.
Okay. So best flower, of course, it's always going to be roses. Roses are they're traditional, they're classic. They come in a million different colors and shapes and sizes. So roses are, I think, are always going to be that number one choice for most. Worst flower. You said rapid. Oh my gosh. Maybe some of the ones that are like really hard to work with, I guess. So maybe like gardenias, magnolias, stephanotis. Those are some of the harder flowers to work with, because you can't like handle them in the same way. So maybe I would say those.
Okay, and the last one, most difficult clients, men, women, when it comes to flowers. Who's
Um,
more picky?
Women.
who's more picky? Yeah, probably women. Yeah,
That's easy.
women are
No,
more picky.
why? It's a lot of
Yeah,
men that's very picky about
I do
flowers.
have. Now trust me, I
Thank
do
you.
have some grooms who have been the pickier partner
Yeah,
Really?
absolutely.
for
Yeah.
sure. I have had some grooms who have come in and they were more excited about, getting things together for the wedding than the bride was. So yeah, it
A lot of
happens.
Nice.
It happens.
a lot of men now are really into the planning of their weddings. I
Oh yeah.
wasn't. I just gave the money and said let her do it. But there are
Yeah.
a lot of men. If you watch
Mhm.
reality shows, the men are involved in the
Mhm.
cater, the decorations.
Like it's a thing.
Yeah,
Yes.
like it's a
Yes.
thing. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yes. I
Okay, I have
do
a
get a lot of
question,
grooms.
Monica.
Hmm.
You talked about roses,
Yes.
and and I always notice that with roses, like when they dry out, like that's it. Like,
Hmm.
are there ever any coming back to a rose bush that maybe has, because they get kind of hard, and then if you touch it, the leaves will just crack and fall away. Is it over like once it's that sets in?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, so with taking care of cut flowers when you have them at home, there are some things that, you can do at home to kind of extend the life of your arrangements. Changing your water daily, making sure that you're keeping them out of the sunlight,
Like I
out of
have a
heat.
rose bush. It's like a
Oh,
plant.
outside.
It's a plant, but it's got baby roses in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I keep watering that thing, and I'm just hoping it just
Yeah.
comes back.
Yeah, those can be rose bushes can be very, very temperamental.
Okay.
They have to be in the right place. They have to have the right soil. They require different fertilizers and special things that you have to put on them every year to kind of make sure that they come back and they come back healthy. They can get diseased.
Mm.
So yeah, so that can stop their growth and stunt their growth. Yeah, rose bushes
Okay.
can be very temperamental.
Thank you for answering that. And the next question I have is: does M Don Floor Design offer weekly subscription for flowers?
So we do. We have in the past. I have taken just a select number of clients for subscriptions
Okay.
because once we get into wedding season, things get really, really busy, and it's just kind of difficult to keep up with that if
Okay.
there are too many customers. But I usually do. I would say maybe 6 to 10 customers that we have for subscriptions. Right now, we have about three that are still hanging on for subscriptions that started in COVID. So
Okay.
yeah, so we do it. It's just most people are kind of what's the word? I don't want to say last minute, but it's just kind of when it comes up, they want flowers
Yeah.
as opposed to purchasing subscriptions. Yeah.
So speaking of extending the life of your arrangement,
Hmm.
so the last time we talked, you got the request for the bouquet, right?
Yes.
Which I thought was a very weird request from my wife. Like, do people ask for that? They
Hmm.
do. Like
Yeah.
they want another wedding bouquet, just like the one they had when they got married, for you to do it again.
Yes. So I had a bride some years ago who left her bouquet in the hotel
Oh
when
wow,
they left to go
yeah.
on the honeymoon.
Uh-huh.
And so her husband called to have it recreated because she had every hope to have it preserved. And
Mhm.
so because she left it, she couldn't get it preserved. So yeah, he did call and ask to have it recreated. So we've done it in under that circumstance. And then too, sometimes for anniversary, or I actually had a couple some years ago. They had been married like, I don't know, 25, 30 years.
Mm.
And she brought me in a photo to be recreated, and we did recreate it as best as I could possibly could. You know, some of those flowers are no longer flowers that we use, but to the best of my ability to create it to look like her picture from 25, 30 years ago. So yeah, sometimes people are doing that. I do encourage most of my brides to have their bouquets preserved if they wish to keep them. And I've had a few couples in the last few years who have done some really creative things with preserving their bouquets. So,
So how do you do that? And
so
that's a good
I
idea. So
don't
I don't
do
have to.
it.
No, that's a good idea. So now I don't
Yes,
have to do
No.
this. I don't have to do
yes.
this every the month, right?
So it's not a service that I offer, but I do have a lady who is here locally.
Mhm.
And so she oftentimes will come to the wedding reception and pick up the bouquet before the end of the night, because time is, of course, you know,
Of the
a
essence,
big thing when it
right?
comes to preserving. You want to make sure that you're getting the flowers while they're still at their best. But
That sounds
there
like a
are some,
transplant.
yeah, there are some materials and things that she uses to dry them and preserve them. She's done some really unique things, like encasing them in glass and in acrylic and things like that. She's done some really beautiful
Hmm.
things that I've seen. Yeah.
Yeah,
So some of my
that
couples
sounds
keep them.
interesting. That
Hmm.
sounds very interesting. Yeah.
It is
Hmm.
pretty cool.
Well, it sounds like kind of a service where I don't know the name of the company, but there's a company where you order like the box of flowers and they like last like all year.
Oh, yeah. So we do have those forever roses. Those are
Okay.
preserved. They
Okay.
are preserved. They're very expensive.
Yeah.
What's
They
very
are
expensive,
very
Monica?
expensive.
Right.
Well, let's just say this. So I had someone contact me a few years ago, and they wanted an acrylic box full of the roses, just kind of lined up in the box, and it was $1,200,
So a dozen of those would probably be a couple $100,
probably, or more.
but they
Yeah.
would last forever. They never.
As long as you keep them, like there are definitely still some instructions on how to best keep them so that they don't, get harmed with the heat and the air and all that stuff. But yeah, for the most part, they are forever.
Wow.
They are forever.
I've never heard of that ever.
Yeah. It's a thing.
It's a thing.
I
Thing.
see. I see.
It is a
You can buy
thing.
flowers. Look, you can invest in flowers and never have to buy them again. You be like, girl, look at that box of flowers over there I bought you last year.
Yeah.
No, that $1,200 box.
Look,
I am
look,
never buying you flowers again.
that might last for a month. Like they say, don't start nothing you're not gonna continue to do, right? So once I start doing that every day, it
Well,
just
first
got to
let me
be.
get my
Yeah,
$1,200 box of flowers first, and I'll see how I feel about it.
yeah, yeah. But
Yes.
I like giving flowers though.
Yeah.
I like getting them. Um,
You do.
I like her reaction when she, yeah. During the pandemic, I brought my wife flowers probably twice a week, every week during the
Okay.
pandemic. Yeah, because she had to work out in the field, and that's depressing when
Mhm.
during COVID. It was really
Yeah.
intense. So I
Yeah.
just brought her the flowers to make her feel better before she. I get up in the morning, go out, get the flowers, and bring them home before she went to work. Most
Hmm.
times I just go to Kroger or something like that, grab a
Yeah.
dozen roses, bring them home, just so she could have something to look at before she went to work. Um, but is there okay? So like, if you buy from like a Kroger, or you go to Thrifty Flowers, which a lot of people go to Thrifty Flowers, is there a difference in the quality? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Are these like sub? Is it like
So
sub average roses and prime
So
roses and
yeah, I'm gonna say yes and no. So there are some stores that have really good flowers, really fresh flowers. I think the difference is that to keep in mind, specifically for grocery stores, is they usually are not in the business of floral design, right?
correct?
So they have flowers there because it's just something else to have to catch your eye,
Right.
as opposed to trying to have something that is just specific that you just really, really want or really have to have.
Right.
And then the other thing to keep in mind too is that I won't say that the flowers are necessarily different, but the way that we process them and take care of them before you get them is a little bit different.
Okay.
I don't really, I've never worked in a grocery store floral department, so I don't know exactly what they do. But from my understanding of, other designers that I've known who have, the processing is just different. So they're not going to last as long. A lot of times the size of the flower may be different. So if they have some of these companies have their own flower farms, and so they're cutting them sooner than maybe a wholesale that I'm purchasing from is cutting them, or a farm that I'm purchasing from is cutting them. So they're going to be a little bit different for event work. So the flowers that I use are probably going to be larger, specifically when thinking about roses. They're going to be a larger type rose, as opposed to the smaller roses that you find in most grocery stores.
What's the most
Mhm.
expensive flower that you have to deal with?
Most expensive. I would say probably orchids.
Yeah.
So there are some orchids called Phalaenopsis orchids. Those are the orchids that you see in the ceramic pots. Sometimes when you go into some of the grocery stores, it's the single kind of a
Hmm.
large
Okay.
head orchid. So those are probably the most expensive per
Aren't
stem.
those perennials though?
Uh, yes, but not in the sense of how we use them. So when
Okay.
we use them, they're already cut. So
Mm.
they're already cut from, their actual root when we get them. So yeah, I don't know if you could
I
plant.
need to
Well,
bring
we
over some of my plants over there so you can tell me if it's any hope. Because I think I bought a plant
I'll
orchid and I
try. Look,
tried
I'll try. I'm
I'm
like,
like, I'm watering them like, is it gonna come back?
now potted plants are not my expertise, so I do not do
Oh,
well.
let me say flowers. I got
Cut
the
flowers, I
rosebud
can tell you
flower.
all day how to deal with those, but some of the plants and things like that, those are just not my
Hmm.
deal.
Okay.
So you said you have done some arrangements for GM and some other companies, and yeah, you can
Mhm.
mention them on here. We're safe. But what about people, like noteworthy people that you've had to deal
Oh
with?
yeah. So yeah, I actually get quite a few calls from um other states to design florals. And again, I think it comes down to that niche and that look. And a lot of times when I ask them where do they find me on Google. So they're Googling and they're looking at photos, they're looking at reviews, and they're ordering, based upon that. So yeah, I've done some work for some celebrities and
Really,
um,
like who? You could tell us. It's
some
good.
store owners and things like that.
Just tell us one person, one noteworthy person, just one.
Ooh.
Cash doll.
You safe. You
No,
safe.
I've never done any for her. Gosh, do I have to say?
She said out of town. She
Yeah,
gonna
just
be
Do I
around
one.
you
have to
saying,
say? So I've done things for, like, let's just say CEOs,
okay.
fashion designers. Um, who else? I'm trying to think any other celebrities. Um, I've done some
Don't.
celebrity events.
Those are common nouns.
Celebrity events.
Those are common nouns.
Celeb-
Okay, you trying to play me, Monica? Those are common nouns. I
Well,
asked you for a
what
proper
I'm hearing
noun.
is I just want to say what I'm hearing because when you think about you said a few different things, Monica, about
Mhm,
people having a synergy of working with you. You have your niche, and you have
mhm,
your clients that work with you. It's kind of the same thing, like working um in the financial services industry.
mhm.
Everybody's not going to be for you. You're going to have some people that's
Oh, yeah.
like you that prefer to work with you, and some people that probably don't want to. Um, but when you think about just businesses and did you think that coming out of social work and therapy work
Mhm.
that your floor design company would be as successful as it has? Because it sounds like you're successful, and if you could tell me, it sounds like it's lucrative.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I don't think there was a time early on when I got into this that I thought that my business would be where it is today. Yeah, I can remember back in, I think it was like 2013, and I was working as a school social worker and a therapist at that time. So I was doing both, kind of working day in and day out.
Yeah.
And still designing on the weekends. And there was a time where I felt like, okay, this is probably going to take over. And what will that look like? But I had no idea that it was going to look like this. I had no idea that I was going to be full time
Wow.
as a floral designer and kind of leaving therapy behind for a while. So yeah, I didn't expect it to be this way. I went full time in May of 2018.
Okay.
And it was one of those situations where I was probably at the most difficult school ever. I was working for a company, and I felt at that time, the company wasn't really listening to me and listening to my needs. And they were just looking at me like, you're this well-seasoned school social worker, you can handle it. And I'm like, I can handle it, but can you handle what's going to happen if I can't,
Right.
or if all these things that are happening every day affect the way that I do my job, which they did. And so it just got to a point where, quite honestly, I got fired. I had never been fired from a job ever in my life. Never could have expected or planned it that way. But when I look back on it, and I can't even say look back on it, within probably 20 minutes to an hour, that confirmation that this was what I was supposed to be doing came.
Yeah.
I was saying to myself, it was the last, I think maybe 3 weeks of school left. And I was like, man, this has been a rough year. I'm like, kids, going to jail and kids fighting and kids dying. I mean, it was so many things that had happened at this school. And I was like, but why, why couldn't I just finish out the school year? I only had 3 more weeks.
Right.
And I was just like, then I started calculating like, oh my gosh, how much more money was I supposed to make for these 3 more weeks? And I literally left the building from the company that I was working for, and said my sayonaras and got out of there. And within, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 minutes, my Cash App was going. And I was like, who's Cash Apping me? What is this? It was one of my larger weddings that was already pretty big. And they had decided to add on 100 guests.
Wow.
For 10 more tables. And that was more than the money that I was expecting from the next week. And so I left there and I was just like, whoa, my mind was blown. I said, okay, God, I see what you're doing.
Yeah.
Okay. And that was the same week that I signed my lease for my first space. Wow. So I was just like, I guess this is it.
Yeah.
So
I guess this is the way this is going to go.
hey, so Monica, since the Queen of Redirect took me off focus twice. And listen, I am a connoisseur for the study of human behavior and human condition. I read psychology material all the time. I got redirected twice. So I'm coming back to the question that I asked before.
Okay.
And this drives my wife crazy because when I'm focused on something, I'm focused. So give me one name.
One what?
Give me one name.
She want one name.
Other than Jerry. Other than Jerry.
Still on that?
Yeah, because you took me off of that. Because you intentionally took me off of that. Listen, the one thing I don't have a helmet and I don't ride a short bus. I'm real quick with it.
Okay, so I'll give you a name. It's because I'm going to give you that name just because
other than Jared Davis Photography. I've
done 2 things for this particular family. So I'm going to give you the name. And it's the Sheared family.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So I've done, okay. There we go. 2 things.
Perfect.
2 things as in my business, and then one that I did with another designer.
Perfect. Because that's how I got to know you truthfully, because you can't go reference Jared. Jared Davis, he referred you to me. And speaking of Jared Davis Photography,
yes,
I'm gonna take a minute to read this ad out. I'm sorry. Dang, where's my thing? Oh my God! I never fumbled.
Finest and professional.
Right. I'm sorry. I got it. For the finest professional photography of all types in the metropolitan Detroit area, contact Jared Davis Photography, where we make the magic the world will want to see. Again, for the finest professional photography services of all types in the metropolitan Detroit area, contact Jared Davis Photography, where we make the magic the world will want to see. Call 567-343-1980. I never fumbled. That was a fumble today because I got took off track twice.
So Chris,
Twice.
Oh
my
gosh.
bad.
Twice. But here's the good thing. Um, what do you ever do arrangements for Thanksgiving?
I do occasionally. Yes, I do occasionally
Are you were
do
surprised
things
by
for
that question,
Thanksgiving.
huh?
Yeah, that was a different question. What?
Right.
Yeah, so for Thanksgiving and for Christmas, I have offered like dinner table arrangements.
Mm.
Those have been pretty popular. Yeah, so yeah, I have done that.
Is it more pressure when you do an event for somebody like you personally know, like somebody in your family gets married or somebody in your family passes and you have to do the arrangement for that or they ask you? Do you feel more of a sense of pressure to really get it right?
Yeah, not so much for weddings because I feel like, most of my family and
Mhm.
friends, they know what I'm doing when it comes to weddings, but definitely yes, for funerals and celebration of life work for sure. Oh
Okay.
yeah, there's definitely pressure if I know the person, if I know the family, if I know the person who is deceased, who has passed on, there's definitely a different pressure there.
So,
Absolutely.
so when somebody doesn't like, okay, when somebody, I gotta hear this. When somebody doesn't like a floral arrangement, how do they come at you about that? Like, how does that? What do they say?
Um,
Like, if they ever
so
say it.
I, you know what? I haven't had very many people say that they don't like something.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, especially not in the last few years. Starting out, maybe. And most people will just tell you that they don't like something, but yeah, that's not something that I feel like happens frequently.
Yeah. So
That
they're not
doesn't
that
happen frequently.
picky because they pretty much explicitly said, "This is what I like."
Yeah, they
Yeah.
pretty much ask for what they want, and I've explained, if I feel like it's a customer who is going to be unusually picky or have some kind of odd expectations of flowers, then I make sure to take the time to educate them about flowers so
Mhm.
that they understand that, you brought me a picture, but it's not going to look exactly like this.
Mm.
The colors may be different. There may be some filters on this photo, things like that. I make sure that I explain those things to them. And it's in my contract.
Hey, so
that
Melody,
that we have to use our artistic abilities and work to the best of our abilities to create what it is they want, because sometimes things are just not available, um or they don't look the same, the colors are not the same, the size is not the same. So yeah, I feel like I do a pretty good job of that, especially with weddings. And so yeah, that doesn't happen often.
Melody got a saying you can use when you try to explain flowers to people. She said she it's a gap in your understanding. That's the melody. Yeah, that's the melody phrase. There must there,
There's a
No,
gap.
Monica,
There
I
must
yeah,
be
need
a
to take
gap
the
in your
class.
understanding.
yeah. There, I think there's a gap in your understanding. So that's deep, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. It
It
makes you pay
is.
attention. It makes you sit up and say, "What?
I'm
Okay, let
like,
me
what?
figure this
What do
out."
you mean
Yeah,
by that?
We fill in this
yeah.
gap.
Yeah, it's a gap in your
Fill in this
understanding.
gap. Yeah. So, and a lot of what I do, specifically doing consultations with couples, is that exactly that, educating them, explaining to them, why things cost what they cost. I find myself doing that a lot, even when I do lives on social media, just explaining why I'm doing things the way I'm doing them,
Sure. Yeah.
and how it prolongs the life of the flower, how it makes things look on wedding or event day. So yeah, I feel like I just spend a lot of time doing that so that when we get to the actual event, there isn't all that like
Have
questioning of why
nutshell.
something isn't the way, they were expecting it
How
to
long
be.
is a consultation normally? How long does that take?
Honestly, between 30 minutes to an hour. Sometimes I go over to 2 hours, depending on how many things we have to discuss. If it's a larger wedding, yeah, sometimes I allow about 2 hours because
So
we end up discussing everything: flowers,
okay.
number totals, how many things they need, their budget, all of that stuff.
So during the pandemic, you were doing consultations, what, Zoom or something like that? You had to
Yes,
do it virtually?
yes.
Okay.
And I still do quite a few Zoom consultations. I tend to get a lot of couples who are career driven people. And so
Hmm.
they don't really have a lot of time to sit and talk. And so, doing a quick Zoom is something they would rather do. And then I also have couples who live out of state. So a lot of my couples are, maybe recent college grads, or, even if they've graduated in the last 5 or 10 years, they're still living in the place where they went to school. And
Mhm.
so they're coming back here to Michigan to get married because their family is here. So a lot of times I'm doing Zooms because of, location, where they're located and where I'm located.
Mm-hmm.
So
So
since you're Greek, you are Greek.
mhm.
You're a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority
Yes,
Incorporated,
yes,
right?
yes.
So being Greek, do you think that that has provided you with an extended audience? I mean, or extended range of people, because the Greek world is huge, right?
Yeah, I think it is starting to. I think initially early on, I don't think people realize the extent of my business. I think, especially when I was still working, when I was still a school social worker and working, I don't think people realized what all I was doing in my
Mhm.
business.
Yeah,
And so over the years, as things have grown, I feel like, yes, being Greek has added to my clientele and increased my clientele, um, especially with even my corporate events. I feel like a lot of my corporate events have actually come from other Greeks. So yeah,
Having that
so
network.
that
yeah.
network, yes.
So when you have a business and you're Greek, because my business, yeah, I guess I could service Greeks, but is it hard dealing with national chapters and local chapters, like in terms of making the connections it's a lot of paperwork and red tape with that?
Well, so for me, I think one of the most difficult or challenging things is that a lot of times, um, florals are something that they are waiting to request. And
Mm-hmm.
so a lot of times we get to kind of the last 3 or 4 weeks and they're calling and asking for floral. So for me, that's difficult because for a number of reasons. Because I have so many wedding and event clients, I can't always just stop and handle something that needs to be handled within 2 weeks. So for me, it can be difficult. But then also, tight budgets, dealing with organizations and not really knowing how much things cost. And so a lot of times there's a tighter budget, which either puts me in a place of not being able to do it if it's just not enough money to work with, or it puts me in a place of working harder than I would like to because I have to make this budget work.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, so yeah,
Yeah,
that's
you
kind
gotta
of
have
the
the
key
money
thing.
if you want flowers. Period. Don't call
yeah,
nobody about no flowers and you ain't got the budget.
right.
You gotta.
Flowers are expensive, and they've gotten more expensive since COVID.
Yeah.
They've gotten more expensive, and then because of COVID, with the whole supply chain, we've been
Mhm.
affected by that as well. So just getting vases, getting candles, getting things like that has been difficult. So
Yeah.
when you're calling, 2 or 3 weeks, 2 days before an event, I can't promise that, we can even get the materials that we need.
One of the things that stood out to me about a recent story that I read about that was so like it just touched my heart, where there was a lady that passed away, but her husband had prepaid for her flowers to come to her every
Mm.
year on her birthday, and
Oh,
it was
wow.
like
Yeah, I read
five
that
years
story.
later she was
Yeah,
still getting flowers.
yeah,
And I'm just like, wow, like
Wow.
people really can like just make, like, if they can connect with you, and,
Mm-hmm.
if they know they're going through something, to say, hey, I'm going to prepay for this and I want you to
Mm-hmm.
continue, as long as your business is alive, to send my wife or my daughter
Mm-hmm.
flowers every year for these holidays. And I just thought
Mm-hmm.
that was like so, like, just
It
beautiful.
is. That's beautiful. That is.
so excuse
Yes.
my ignorance, when you make something, you
Uh-huh.
really have to, it's like what, a 24-hour turnaround, it has to go like immediately because of the nature of flowers,
Yeah,
like
so
how
there's
long can it sit?
definitely a time. So for me with weddings, let's say I have a Saturday wedding, I start working, physically working on Monday. So
Hmm.
Monday I'm getting the flowers in, I'm processing them, I'm making sure, and processing is basically taking them out of their packaging. I'm putting them into flower food, into their buckets so that they can drink and open up and be pretty for event day. And that can take up to, 5 days to a week for them to look pretty on event day. And then Tuesday, same thing, kind of checking them, making sure that they look good, that they're performing and doing all the things that I want them to do so that I can use them and design with them. And then on usually Wednesday, Thursday, I'm actually designing. Some things will go into my floral fridge so that they can be preserved and kept cool for wedding day. And then other things such as the centerpieces and things like that that I want to continue to open and bloom, those things kind of stay out of the cooler up until wedding day. So those are done usually Thursday, Friday, closer to a Saturday wedding.
Okay, so about 24 to 48 hours, whatever it is, it's got to be to the customer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, okay.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I was just trying to get an understanding about how long does it actually sit around before
Yeah.
you have to get, yeah.
So
Wow.
it's a quick turnaround. And yeah, so if I'm getting a call for something that, they say, oh, I want open bloom roses tomorrow.
Mm-mm.
That's not gonna happen. Because I'm getting flowers that are coming fresh from the farm. And so they need to drink and hydrate and all of that before they can even start to open and bloom and
Mm.
blossom. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I can
Yeah.
say,
Sound
I can say truth. Go ahead, Mel. I'm sorry.
no,
Go
no,
ahead.
no. Go. I was gonna say it sound just like us as people. We take time. We need to be
We,
able to
we take
be
time.
nourished and open up and bloom. Okay, go ahead, Chris. What was you gonna
No,
say?
no, I can say with certainty, like
Mhm.
I don't like being disingenuous when I promote people, but I've seen your work. I bought your work. So
Hmm.
I'll say honestly, right here on the air, that it's great. I loved it. It
Thank
was
you.
beautiful. And it was for my cousins. So my cousin wanted to surprise his wife. So he
Mhm.
couldn't do anything. I had to do it all for him myself. So that's why I called you because he couldn't do it. He could never get
Yeah.
free to do it, right? So I was like, okay, I don't know what this is gonna look like, right? But when they got it, when they both of them received it at J. Alexander, they were like, wow, this is really, really beautiful. Like, so you made that
Well,
day
thank
very
you.
special.
It was
Very,
my
very
pleasure.
special.
It's my
Yeah.
pleasure.
And she was your sorority sister on top of it. So
Yes.
right, right, right. I was like, oh, I forgot. My
Yes.
cousin
And
at
she ordered
AKA.
and she ordered from me again after that.
Wow.
She
See,
did. Yep. She called and placed the
look how
order.
God worked. So before we get
Yes.
ready to close, Monica, I want you to, tell our audience how they can get in touch with you, give them your contact information, all of that.
Okay. So it's M Dawn Floral Design on pretty much every social media platform. So we're on Instagram, we are on Facebook. I have a LinkedIn I think my LinkedIn is under my personal name, but M Dawn Floral Design is listed there as well. And then our website is www.mdawnfloral.com. And we have an inquiry form there on our website where you can inquire about your date, to check and see if your date is available, and then we reach out to you and schedule a consultation from there. And the same thing with Facebook and Instagram. If you try to contact me there, it will direct you back to the website, and that's just so that we can keep everything in one place. So all of our communications and things are in one place. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
great. That's great. So Monica, since me and Melody started the show, our whole
Mhm.
goal has been it's kind of contradictory to the name, right? Because people say the real nonsense and they think it's about to be, but our whole goal is to uplift, promote
Mhm.
um, entrepreneurs, our own people in our culture who are doing very good, positive things out in the world, who are impacting and affecting many, many people. So we're honored that you took the time to be in our space today.
Well, thank
Um,
you. Thank you.
Absolutely
I'm
honored.
honored to be here. I am
Absolutely
honored to
honored.
be here.
So, is there
Pleasure
anything you
being.
want to leave our audience with? Anything, any words of wisdom about floral, flowers, anything you want to leave with our audience before we end the show today?
Well, I guess I just want to say stay tuned to what is coming from M. Dawn Floral Design. I am working on combining some therapeutic processes with floral design. So I'm working on
Okay.
that behind the scenes. So I'm not
Yes,
leaving therapy behind. I have not
therapy,
left
I love
therapy
that because we
behind.
need therapy in our community.
Yes,
therapy.
so I'm
I
looking
wonder,
at
I
some
wonder how
ways to do
impactful,
that.
I wonder how impactful flowers would be in school for kids. I
I've been
bet
thinking
you,
about that as well. That's
I
another
bet
area
you,
I'm thinking about.
I
Yeah,
bet you that
thinking
would
about
change.
how I can do some classes and things and get myself back
Yeah,
in front of the kids. And yeah, so I am
yeah.
working on that, and I'm actually speaking with somebody this coming week to get that ball rolling.
We need to get her in connection with Sharia, because she could probably teach a class on that parenting community engagement thing.
Absolutely. Hey, absolutely. Because the real nonsense, we're working with the Juneteenth celebration in Avenue Fashion. So
awesome.
absolutely,
I would love to.
Yeah, we want to sponsor.
Yeah, I would love to collaborate with some other entrepreneurs and get some things going. Absolutely.
Well, we'll make it happen. So this has been another wonderful episode of The Real Nonsense, where we make it
make sense. Shalom, everybody. Happy Easter.
Happy Easter.
Bye-bye.
Okay.